Arts is made possible by viewers like you.
Arts is presented by the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts, providing the best place anywhere to see and hear a live performance, transforming the performing arts in San Antonio's decade of downtown. The Tobin Center.
On this edition of Arts, a national retrospective exhibit comes to town with a San Antonio connection. A new art space in Aspen, Colorado is generating some major buzz, and major announcements at the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts. All this and much, much more on this edition of Arts. Hi, I'm Asia Cherubino, and welcome to Arts. Rarely does an artist get to see a major retrospective on their own life's work. Jamie Wyeth Retrospective makes a stop at the San Antonio Museum of Art, one of only 3 venues in the country for this traveling retrospective. Let's take a look.
The museum is thrilled to present one of the largest retrospectives of Jamie Wyeth's career. He's an important contemporary American artist from a family that has had an indelible impact upon the visual culture of our country. He's been working since the 1960s. He's been the subject of many shows, some with his father, Andrew Wyeth, and other artists. And this is one of the first times that a retrospective devoted to him has been organized and is traveling across the country. It contains over 100 works from all phases of his career. You get to explore the artist from being basically a teenage prodigy, amazing portraitist, to when he worked in New York with Andy Warhol and members of the Factory. And you also get to trace his fascination with the places where he lives and works. Maine and the Brandywine River Valley, and the people, places, and animals in wonderful ways that are residents there. There is a San Antonio connection to the Wyeth retrospective. Mr. Wyeth had a dog named Kleberg, and people will recognize that name as the King Ranch family. Mr. Wyeth is great friends with the family from the Kleberg family from the King Ranch. They gave him a puppy who they named Kleberg in honor of the friendship. You can see that dog in the exhibition. You'll notice the dog has an eye patch, this great black ring around his face, which is due to the fact that he apparently hung out in the studio and got into paints. Mr. Wyeth painted him that way. A UPS guy apparently said, well, that looks just like the dog from our gang, and so he did that continually with Kleberg. I can't imagine the dog sitting still for that, but it's a testament to the great bond that Mr. Wyeth has with animals. And there are extraordinary examples of animal art in the exhibition, as well as landscapes, really deeply moving portraits, and some fascinating excursions into the idea of memory and history, what we remember, allegories about virtue, vice, sin. It's a wonderful show. There's truly something for everyone in it. On Monhegan Island, which is one of the places where Mr. Wyeth maintains a studio, the residents of the island celebrate fall with pumpkins. There's a ceremony where they toss pumpkins off the cliffs. Also, the Wyeth family, for years, celebrated Halloween through the carving of pumpkins as well. And you see this united in his work. There's a great self-portrait from early in Mr. Wyeth's career called Jamie Pumpkinhead, where he is posing with his head as a pumpkin, but there are also images of flying pumpkins. It's a mysterious and kind of delightful type of imagery, a little ominous at times, and that's one of the things that we love about Mr. Wyeth's work. It's very accessible, and you start looking at it, and then sometimes there's an edge, a very sort of exciting edge, sometimes unsettling, and always beautifully painted. Visitors to the show will see 2 remarkable tableaus that Mr. Wyeth had constructed. They are scenes of his life in New York. One is of the Factory and one is of a restaurant dining room. And he made these because he was thinking about his past, and he was revisiting his history, and so he created these amazingly detailed settings. And as he told us, he basically took G.I. Joe dolls, popped their heads off, put new heads on them, found an Andy Warhol wig, and meticulously recreated these great settings. These are marvelous little worlds. They were very personal, but the curator at Boston who organized the show persuaded him to let these be included. And he has hinted to us that there are more that may or may not see the public light of day, but 2 of them are here at San Antonio, and we hope you'll check them out. The museum has a number of exciting programs in store during the run of the show. It's up until July 5th. Everything can be found at samuseum.org, and we hope that you'll come and come often and get to know Wyeth's art and enjoy.
We want to hear from you. Do you know of a good story you'd like to see aired on Arts? Let us know by emailing us at arts@klrn.org. If we use your idea, you'll get a screen credit on our program. Next up, we meet a sculptor who turned to art for his salvation. Jerry Schmidt is a second-generation sculptor who has found peace in constructing elegant metal structures. His work may be reminiscent of his father's, but Schmidt remains firm. Their personal styles couldn't be more different.
The similarity between Jerry Schmidt's abstract sculptures and those of his father, Fred Schmidt, who died in 2001, are striking.
I think that my father was living in an abstract world. He was very abstract. Dad was very abstract. I mean, his work was just all over the place. I have settled down.
Like his dad, Jerry became a union welder and had a long career as an ironworker. He learned to handle a torch as a child, working alongside his father in the family garage turned studio.
He handed me a helmet one day, and I looked into this helmet, which was pure dark, but when he struck that arc, I seen that light. And that light is what it was that light at the end of the tunnel.
They were some of the best times of Jerry's life.
And I can remember just going into our old garage, you know, and watching my father grind and weld, and, you know, just the smell of it just kind of like would just give me a rush.
Unfortunately, those good feelings didn't extend beyond the studio.
When my father wasn't doing his art, he was a mean man, a very mean man to us kids. When my father was in that studio creating, he was a complete different person. This was his medication, was his art. I don't think my father understood himself, and that was the abstract world that he lived in.
It's unclear to Jerry the source of his dad's anger. It is clear the impact that it had on him growing up.
I hated everything. Oh, I was very angry. I was a very angry young man. If someone approached me, I would just automatically fight, and that was my way of dealing with life.
Determined not to let anger rule his life, Jerry turned to the one thing that seemed to make his dad happy: art.
I had a choice in life to live his life, to hate if you do something wrong, call you stupid and call you dumb. Those are the things that I had removed out of my vocabulary.
And in 2001, Jerry began making sculptures.
None of these pieces are pre-planned. It's something that when I walk over to my scrap steel, it's almost like it talks to me. Just starts with just one single element, and then all of a sudden it just all these pieces come together and it forms, and once I start to see that, then the sculpture starts to become complete.
Jerry sees his work made from reclaimed metal as playful and whimsical.
Whatever you see, you're right. That's the beauty of abstract, is I'm never wrong. And neither is the viewer. There's no ugly art here because I don't make anything, I don't create anything that has a negative reason.
Today, Jerry is passing his skills as a welder and the joy that he gets from art along to his son, Tyler, and grandson, Nathaniel.
You like that there? That's a great... I say to him, if you have a problem, if you have something in your head, come to the studio and create. I always give my son a positive force, where I was raised in a negative lifestyle, but in an abstract world.
We'd like to feature your art on our show. Just email us a picture, video, sound recording, whatever artwork you have created to arts@klrn.org and put the words "My Art" in the subject line. Each week we'll select a project and share it with our viewers. A new art space is generating some major buzz in Aspen, Colorado. Reporter Carrie Saldo walks us through the new Aspen Art Museum, an architectural space that merits equal appreciation as the art collection it houses.
It's a small community for sure, but one of the things about Aspen is that it's always been a magnet for people who are profoundly philanthropic, profoundly educated, and profoundly cultured.
Aspen has long been a place where creativity thrives. When the Aspen Art Museum was first founded in 1979, the idea was to bring world-class art to this Rocky Mountain ski destination. As its popularity grew, Aspen became a destination for the wealthy. The average value of a home here is $4.5 million. Recently, a group of art-loving residents donated $72 million to this new project, which is nearly 4 times the size of the former Aspen Art Museum. It's open year-round, and admission is free.
3 artists founded the original Aspen Center for the Arts. They used what they could find, which was a decrepit power plant down by the river, and the goal was always to try and bring visual culture to the center of Aspen.
Myself and 2 other artists got together with a local foundation, and we made our pitch. It was never really envisioned to be strictly about local art. It was to be a bigger vision. It would show work from out of town, national, international, and bring the art world to Aspen. When we started, we wanted to be on the level of the Music Associates, the ballet, the theater, and so it took a while to get there, but we became a very important cog in the cultural community here. And you know, culture here is huge business.
Heidi Zuckerman considers the newly realized museum, designed by Pritzker Prize-winning architect Shigeru Ban, as a continuation of the interest in the arts in Aspen.
This building's really specific to Aspen, and I think you find that in the way that he brings the outside in and the inside out, and I think it's perfectly suited for our community. Shigeru came to Aspen many times, looked at our environment, specifically the undulating hills around, and created a building that was really responsive to our environment. He's really an anti-monumental architect. He doesn't create buildings as sculptures that can be plunked down in Rio or San Francisco or Paris.
The building and its location in downtown Aspen has elicited a range of responses from people.
Why did you come to the museum today?
Because I like art, and I like museums, and I've never been to a museum.
I've just started exploring a little bit. I have so much more appreciation for it. I think the architect himself has an exhibit here, and I was looking at that in his humanitarian work. That gives me so much more respect for him and the building, and it's a beautiful space, which I know can be used for so many community events as well.
I think the building is pretty. Kind of looks like an IKEA cafeteria, but it's pretty. An IKEA is pretty. Just saying.
Disliked or liked, now that the Aspen Art Museum is open, Heidi Zuckerman says her primary focus is the artwork.
When institutions do a building project, there's so much focus on the actual building, the construction schedule, the timing, the budget. Eventually, people will forget if the building opened on time, which ours has, and if it's done on budget, which ours has, and that they'll only focus on the art, and that it's our obligation to make sure the art is incredible because that's why we built this building. What I wanted to do with the opening exhibition program was to show the breadth and depth of our interests. Never try and be all things to all people, but rather just show what we're interested in on a very broad-based way. So we have works of contemporary art which were commissioned specifically for us. We have works of modern art which were borrowed from museums here in the United States and from collections abroad. We have sculpture, we have ceramics, we have works on paper, we have paintings, we have architecture, we have environmental installation, we have text-based art. And I really wanted to open with artists and an architect who have the highest amount of intention and integrity in their work, and to be very celebratory for this momentous occasion. Through the generosity of friends, 11 Buddhist monks came over here and they did a blessing on our building and on all of us that allowed us to open in a sacred space. And we talk about these galleries as being sacred spaces for the presentation of art, and now that energy of those incredible 11 monks fill the space as well. Their blessing was a real metaphor for contemporary art, which is there's no it. It's not about getting it. It's just about being with it.
What is contemporary art? It's what people are doing now. It's hard to question artists about what they're doing. They're doing what is their life, really. So the culmination of that is that you're going to get things that are offbeat and strange, and one thing generates another. So, you know, as materials and performances and conceptual ideas get further out from the mainstream, that just grows.
And that's one of the things I like the most about contemporary art, is that sometimes it puts people in a space of unknowing. And you know, there's so much of our life that's focused on, you know, being right, knowing what's happening, being in charge, and art is an opportunity to allow ourselves to actually be comfortable in the uncomfortable. We don't collect objects, but we collect artists. Artists come back in and out of our program. So the Aspen Art Museum fits in with the continuum of these artists' practice, and we're really honored to be able to have that role.
What we're showing here, you would see in New York or LA or anywhere. I mean, this is what's being made, this is what artists are doing. So why would we not want to be part of that? You know, we really wanted to bring fresh American contemporary art, so we didn't want to collect. And it's a great philosophy, I think. Very flexible.
We are all about working primarily with emerging artists. We say we're all contemporary art all the time. And, you know, we empower artists to do new work. And, you know, there's a risk in that. Contemporary art and contemporary art museum like ours, a Kunsthalle without a permanent collection, is a laboratory. And, you know, when you are working in a laboratory, some things succeed, some things blow up in your face, and, you know, that's just the way it goes.
What can art do?
I think art can save lives. I've seen it happen. I'm certain about it. That's why I get up and go to work every day, because I know that what we do is important and it's impactful and it's a key contributor to the great society. What more can we do but ask how we can be of service?
Recently, the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts made some huge announcements about next season. Let's check in with Mike Fresher.
We are thrilled to be able to follow up the Paul McCartney benefit concert from last season to our second year's opening benefit concert is Lionel Richie, Grammy Award winning, Academy Award winning musical icon, will be here on October 22nd, 2015, and all proceeds will benefit the Tobin Center for Performing Arts. We're also excited to announce the BMW Signature Series, which is our theatrical series, includes 5 shows. Along with 2 specials, the Midtown Men, as well as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which was such a success for us last year. One new series that we've announced is our dance series, which will include 6 very unique dance genres at the Tobin Center, including 1 performance by Ballet San Antonio. So we're real excited about now incorporating dance into our portfolio of events. We've been open now for 8 months, and I think that we have really surpassed a lot of the expectations that folks had when this project became a reality in 2007. We've been open for 150,000 people have come through our doors. We've had 394 events in 211 days. So we have been very active. Our staff is world-class, as are the shows that we've brought in, and we continue to look for new and exciting performers and events to bring to San Antonio.
To add your event to the KLRN Arts calendar, visit klrn.org/arts. Award-winning playwright August Wilson chronicles the struggles and joys of African Americans in his works. Now, we take a closer look at Wilson's life through the making of American Masters, August Wilson, The Ground on Which I Stand.
His rise to Broadway was as unlikely as it was unusual. Unapologetically devoted to his art, uncompromisingly grounded in the belief that ordinary black life was ennobled with gifts of blood, of memory, of history. He would create an epic body of work, 10 plays that would go on to win a Tony Award, 2 Pulitzers, launch the careers of countless actors, and earn the honor of having a Broadway theater named after him. His birth name was Frederick August Kittle, but to the world, he was known as August Wilson.
I'd seen, many years ago, I had seen 2 of his plays on Broadway, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Fences. I had seen those plays. I had not seen the other plays. That's not true, I'd seen A Piano Lesson also on Broadway. But the other ones I hadn't seen. I knew about them, I had not seen them, and I didn't really know much more about Wilson's life than what I had read, when I was doing some research on some other projects or something about actors or playwrights. So I didn't really know a lot. So when Daryl Ford Williams approached me, I guess now it's 2012, about coming on board to direct the Wilson film, then I dived in and started to really do some very intense research, understanding who August Wilson was, where he came from, and the whole Hill District section of his life in Pittsburgh.
Everyone had their own story about August Wilson, especially as his fame grew, so did the stories, So everyone would say, oh yeah, well, I worked with him when he was a dishwasher at such and such a diner. Or, yeah, I knew him. I would see him at a legendary place called the Crawford Grill. Yeah, I'd see him in the corner scribbling, and nobody knew what he was scribbling about. He'd just sit there for hours smoking and scribbling. So you'd hear these stories, and I just found it fascinating.
August would have accomplished something that no other playwright has done in the history of the world. Write 10 plays about a specific people, one for each decade of a century. Never been done.
I always say that the most exciting thing about working on documentaries is really the research part. Is when you start to do the investigation into a person's life. When you start to meet, his sister or his niece and nephew, or you spend time with his widow, Costanza, and she took us to his archive, and we spent time going through those boxes of all his material, all the stuff he had handwritten, little things on napkins, on paper plates, pieces of his plays that he would write, because he was always creating. So to me, the most important part of the documentary process really is the research, really is the getting to know the people who knew him.
Things that you may not know from a person who sits in a corner scribbling and smoking is that he was a funny guy. He was a jokester, he had a great sense of humor. He loved to talk sports. He was very compassionate. People who were underserved or who looked like they needed a little help. He was very generous of spirit.
He had a special place in their house in Seattle where he would work. And he had the typewriter, or at this point of his career, computer. He'd have it set up, and he would circle it. He wouldn't just go straight to it. He would sort of circle it, and circle it, and circle it. It was part of a ritual. And then he would sit down, and he would begin the process of working. He'd work a few hours, and then he would stop, and the next day he would do the same thing again. He had a process, a ritual, which I find is a wonderful thing to understand about an artist, a craftsperson, is that we all have rituals that inform how we approach our craft.
There are issues that one would think we have passed, that we really haven't. And it's actually his gift to us, to have a look back that he provided theatrically to those things that are contemporary and real in our everyday lives.
And that wraps it up for this edition of Arts. We'd like to thank San Antonio Museum of Art for hosting us this week. Until then, I'm Asia Sheravina. We'll see you then.
Arts is made possible by viewers like you.
Arts is presented by the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts, providing the best place anywhere to see and hear a live performance, transforming the performing arts in San Antonio's decade of downtown. The Tobin Center.
Next week on Arts.
Trust is really at the bottom of money, and art too. I think we need trust in order to really fully engage a work of art.